At the altar, he chose my sister over me. Those words still cut through my soul like a knife. I was standing in front of 100 guests, dressed in a white gown, my hands trembling as I waited for the man I had loved for years to take my hand. Instead, he turned, looked me dead in the eye, and with a smirk that made my stomach twist, he said, "You are just a bitch, but she is my wife." The guests gasped. Some even screamed. And before I could process what had just happened, my younger sister, Lily, walked up to the altar in her baby blue bridesmaid dress, slid her arm into his, and smiled at me as if she had just won the cruelest game. My legs almost gave out under me. My whole body felt cold, like the blood in my veins had frozen. My mother fainted right there in the front row. My father stood up, his fists shaking, while the whispers in the hall grew louder and louder. But me? I just stood there, staring, broken, humiliated. The man who once swore to protect my heart had just shattered it in front of the world, and the reason behind it was a betrayal I never saw coming. And that's where my story begins. But before I tell you how I ended up at the altar being replaced by my own sister, I need you to listen closely. Because what happened to me isn't just a story about love. It's about revenge, betrayal, and a chain of events that would drag my entire family into chaos, courtrooms, jail cells, and even a murder trial. If you're watching this right now, I want you to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell because this is only the beginning. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. My name is Emily Carter. I'm the first daughter of the Carter family, a family so respected in our city that people would lower their voices whenever my father walked into a room. My dad, Richard Carter, is a businessman, strict, commanding, and the type of man who believes reputation is everything. My mom, Susan, is a gentle soul, but she always says that women in our family must be strong because we carry the Carter name. And then there's Lily, my baby sister. Sweet, spoiled, and beautiful in a way that made everyone notice her the second she walked into a room. Growing up, Lily and I were close. I used to braid her hair before school, hold her hand when she was scared, and share my secrets with her. I loved her more than anything. But what I didn't know back then was that the sister I protected would one day be the same sister who stood beside the man I loved, while I stood broken. It all started 3 years ago when I first met Jason Miller. Jason was tall, charming, and every girl's dream. But he wasn't just handsome. He was ambitious. He came from nothing, yet he climbed so fast in business that even my father respected him. When Jason asked me out, it felt like a fairy tale. And when he proposed, my parents couldn't stop smiling. I thought I had found the man who would love me forever. But then came the night that changed everything. It was Lily's 21st birthday. We threw a huge party at her house. The music was loud, the drinks kept flowing, and Jason was there, looking at me like I was the only girl in the world. At least, that's what I thought. But sometime that night, Jason disappeared. And so did Lily. I didn't think much of it until weeks later, when I found a text message on Jason's phone. A text that made my hands shake and my heart stop. It was from Lily, and it said, "I can't stop thinking about last night. Does she know?" I felt like the ground had opened beneath me. I confronted Jason, but he swore it was a mistake, that he was drunk, that it meant nothing, that he loved me. And like a fool, I believed him. I didn't tell my parents, I didn't expose Lily, I just buried it inside me. Because I loved him. But betrayal is like poison. No matter how much you try to cover it, it spreads. Months passed. Jason and I continued planning our wedding. Lily acted normal, smiling at me, hugging me, pretending like she was my biggest supporter. But little did I know, they were still seeing each other behind my back. And then came the wedding day. Everything looked perfect, the flowers, the music, the guests. But inside, my heart was heavy. I didn't know why. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was my gut telling me something was wrong. And then it happened. Right there at the altar, when the priest asked Jason if he would take me as his wife, he looked at me with cold eyes. Then he turned to Lily and said those words that would haunt me forever. "You're just a bitch, but she is my wife." My sister smirked. My father roared in anger. My mother collapsed to the floor. And me? I stood frozen in my wedding dress, my dreams burning down in flames. But the story doesn't end there. Because what happened after that day would shake my family to its core. Secrets would be exposed, blood would be spilled, and someone would end up behind bars. And it all started with that one cruel betrayal at the altar. The hall was chaos. Guests shouting, cameras flashing, whispers flying from every corner. My father rushed forward, grabbing Jason by the collar, his face red with fury. "You shame my family in front of everyone," he growled. Jason only smiled, calm and confident, as if he had been waiting for this exact moment. "This isn't about your family, Mr. Carter," he said, pushing my father's hands off his suit. "This is about me choosing the woman I love. And that woman is Lily." I felt like I had been stabbed in the chest. My sister, my own sister, took a step closer, sliding her hand into his. "She's right here," Lily whispered, her voice low but clear enough for everyone to hear. "I am the one he wants." I shook my head in disbelief. "Lily, how could you do this to me? You're my sister." She looked at me, her eyes cold, lips curved into a smile that didn't belong to the sister I thought I knew. "That's the thing, Emily. I was always the second choice. Always standing in your shadow. Not anymore. Jason chose me." Her words pierced me deeper than Jason's betrayal. Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to let them fall. I couldn't show weakness, not in front of them. Then, suddenly, a loud crack echoed in the hall. My father had slapped Lily across the face. "You disgraceful child," he shouted, his voice shaking the chandeliers above. "You are no daughter of mine." The entire room gasped. Some guests stood up, others covered their mouths in shock. Jason immediately stepped in front of Lily, shielding her. "If you touch her again, I swear, Mr. Carter, you'll regret it," Jason threatened, his voice dark and steady. That was the first time I saw the real Jason. Not the man who kissed my forehead at night or held my hand at family dinners. No. This Jason was cold, dangerous, and fearless enough to stand against my father. Security rushed in, trying to separate them. My mother, still weak from fainting, begged my father to calm down. But the damage was already done. The wedding was over. My life, as I knew it, was over. The guests left in whispers, shaking their heads. Some looked at me with pity, others with judgment. I stood there in my torn pride, my gown heavy like chains dragging me down. That night, I locked myself in my room, replaying Jason's words in my head. "You are just a bitch, but she is my wife." Why? Why would he do this? Wasn't I enough? Or had I been nothing more than a step on his ladder to power? Because deep down I knew the truth. Jason didn't just love Lily. He needed her. And my father's reaction at the altar made everything clear. Jason wasn't after me. He was after our family's name, our wealth, and the influence that came with it. But when he realized my father would never truly accept him through me, he turned to the one person who would do anything for his love, Lily. It was a cruel calculation. A betrayal carved with precision. The days that followed were a blur. Reporters camped outside our home, the story making headlines in every paper. Business heiress abandoned at the altar. Fiancé chooses her younger sister. I couldn't even step outside without hearing the whispers. My friends didn't call. My relatives didn't visit. I was drowning in humiliation. But humiliation was just the beginning. One night, about a week after the failed wedding, I overheard my parents arguing in the study. I pressed my ear to the door and froze at my father's words. If Jason thinks he can humiliate me and still walk away with my daughter, he has another thing coming. I'll destroy him. "Richard, please," my mother pleaded. "Don't make things worse. Lily is still our daughter." "No," my father spat. "Lily chose her side. She will face the consequences too." My heart pounded in my chest. My father was planning something. Something dangerous. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind raced with images, Jason and Lily together, my father plotting revenge, and me caught in the middle of a storm I didn't start. And then, the storm finally broke. 3 days later, Police sirens wailed outside our house. Red and blue lights flashed through my window. I ran downstairs, only to see Jason in handcuffs, being shoved into the back of a squad car. Lily was screaming, her mascara running down her cheeks as she clung to him. Jason. Jason. No. My father stood on the porch, arms folded, his face hard as stone. Jason caught my eye through the car window. His expression wasn't fear. It wasn't shame. It was a promise. A dark promise. "This isn't over, Emily," he mouthed before the car door slammed shut. And in that moment I knew Jason wasn't going down quietly. Something bigger was coming. Something that would tear my family apart in ways I couldn't yet imagine. Jason's arrest sent shockwaves through the city. Overnight, the headlines changed from wedding humiliation to scandal. Millionaire businessman arrested at fiancé's family estate. I should have felt relief. I should have been glad to see him taken away after what he did to me. But instead, I felt something far heavier, fear. Because Jason wasn't the type of man to lose quietly. The next morning, the phone rang nonstop. Reporters wanted statements. Business partners wanted explanations. Even the mayor's office called my father, demanding answers. But no one outside the family knew the truth. My father was behind Jason's arrest. The charges? Fraud, money laundering, tax evasion. My father had been digging for months, ever since he suspected Jason wasn't who he pretended to be. And now, with Jason out of the way, my father thought the Carter family name was safe. But he was wrong. 2 nights later, I woke up to the sound of shattering glass. I rushed to the window, heart pounding. Down on the lawn, under the moonlight, stood Lily. Her hair was messy, her eyes swollen from crying. She was screaming at the top of her lungs. "You ruined everything. You set him up. I hate you all." My father stormed out in his robe, yelling back at her. "He used you, Lily. He's a criminal. Can't you see that?" But Lily wasn't listening. She was hysterical, clawing at her own skin as if she wanted to tear the pain out of her body. "He loves me," she shouted. "And I'll prove it. I'll prove it to the world." Before anyone could stop her, she jumped into her car, slammed the door, and sped off into the night. I felt my stomach twist. Something bad was about to happen. The next morning, the news broke again. Jason Miller released on bail, spotted leaving the courthouse with young heiress Lily Carter. My knees went weak as I read the article. Lily had bailed him out. The photos were plastered everywhere, Jason, smiling in his suit, holding Lily's hand as if she was a savior. And in the caption below, words that stabbed me deeper than any knife. Jason Miller declares, "Lily is the only woman I love." The humiliation was unbearable. But worse than that, fear began crawling into my bones. Because Jason wasn't just back, he was coming for us. That same evening, my father gathered us in the living room. His voice was cold, his face carved with fury. "We cannot allow this man to destroy us," he said. "If Lily has chosen him, then she is chosen against this family. From this moment forward, she is no longer a Carter." My mother burst into tears. "Richard, she's still our child. Please don't do this." But my father wouldn't budge. He turned to me, his eyes hard. "Emily, you need to understand. Jason isn't after Lily. He's after me. And if we're not careful, he'll drag us all into ruin." I wanted to believe him. But a part of me wondered, was this truly about Jason? Or was my father hiding something? Because Jason's threats at the police car echoed in my mind. "This isn't over, Emily." And then it happened. 2 nights later, I was in my room, staring blankly at the ceiling when I heard footsteps outside my window. My heart raced. Slowly, I pulled back the curtains and froze. Jason was standing in the shadows, staring up at me. His eyes locked onto mine, burning with rage and something darker, possession. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stood there, watching me, until a cruel smile curled across his lips. I backed away from the window, shaking. I grabbed my phone, ready to call security, when suddenly, bang! A gunshot rang out in the night. Screams followed. I dropped my phone, heart pounding, as chaos erupted outside. Rushing to the balcony, I saw him. My father was lying on the ground, blood pooling around his chest. And standing over him was Jason holding the gun. The sound of that gunshot still echoes in my ears. I screamed until my throat burned, rushing down the stairs as fast as my legs could carry me. By the time I reached the lawn, security guards had swarmed the scene. My father lay there, his shirt soaked in blood, his chest rising and falling faintly as he struggled to breathe. "Call an ambulance," I cried, falling to my knees beside him. "Dad, stay with me. Please, don't leave me." His lips trembled. He tried to speak, but only blood came out. And then my eyes shifted. Jason stood a few feet away, still holding the gun. His expression wasn't shock. It wasn't regret. It was satisfaction, like he had finally delivered the blow he'd been planning all along. But just before the guards tackled him to the ground, I heard his voice cut through the chaos. "I didn't shoot him." The words made no sense. I saw the gun in his hands. I saw the smoke rising from the barrel. How could he stand there and deny it? The police arrived within minutes. Jason was dragged into a squad car for the second time in less than a month. My father was rushed to the hospital, his pulse weak, his body trembling on the stretcher. My mother collapsed in tears, clutching his hand until the paramedics pulled her away. I followed the ambulance, my hands shaking, my gown still stained with dirt and blood from the ground. Every red light, every second felt like an eternity. By the time we reached the emergency room, I was already bracing for the worst. Hours passed. Doctors rushed in and out. Machines beeped. My mother prayed nonstop, whispering through sobs. Finally, the surgeon walked out, his face grave. "We managed to stabilize him, but the bullet damaged his lung. He's in critical condition. We'll need to keep him under intensive care." My mother wailed, collapsing into my arms. I tried to be strong, but my heart was splitting in two. And then, as if things weren't already unbearable, the real storm began. The very next morning, the story exploded across every news channel. Did Jason Miller shoot Richard Carter? Or was it a setup? Video clips surfaced from shaky cell phone cameras. But the footage wasn't clear. Some angles showed Jason holding the gun. Others were too blurry to tell. And then came the shocking twist. Lily's interview. My own sister, standing outside the courthouse, her face streaked with fake tears, telling the reporters, "Jason didn't shoot my father. He's being framed. The Carters are trying to destroy him because he chose me over Emily." My jaw dropped as I watched. My hands trembled with rage. How could she stand there and defend the man who left our father fighting for his life? But the worst came next. The reporter asked her, "If Jason didn't pull the trigger, then who did?" Lily didn't hesitate. She looked straight at the camera and said, "Emily." My whole body went cold. I dropped the remote, staring at the screen in disbelief. My own sister had just accused me, on national television, of shooting my father. The backlash was immediate. Reporters camped outside our gates, demanding answers. Strangers sent me messages filled with hate. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Overnight, I went from victim to suspect. And then the police showed up at our door. 2 officers stood there, grim-faced, their hands resting on their belts. "Emily Carter," one of them said. "We need you to come with us for questioning." My mother gasped, grabbing my arm. "No. She didn't do anything. She's innocent." But the officers were firm. "Ma'am, we just need to ask her some questions." I felt the walls closing in. My breath grew shallow. This wasn't just a nightmare anymore. This was real. My own sister had turned me into the villain of my father's shooting. And as they escorted me toward the police car, flashes from cameras blinded me. Reporters screamed questions in my face. "Emily, did you shoot your father? Was this about revenge against Jason and Lily? Are you jealous of your sister's relationship?" I wanted to scream back. I wanted to tell them the truth. But my voice was gone. My world was collapsing. The car door slammed shut behind me, sealing me in darkness. And in that silence, one thought burned in my mind. If Jason didn't shoot my father, then who did? The police station smelled like old coffee and fear. They led me into a small room with gray walls and a single flickering light. I sat at the metal table, my hands trembling as the door closed behind me. Two detectives walked in. One was older, with sharp eyes that seemed to pierce straight through me. The other was younger, scribbling in a notepad like he already had my fate written down. "Emily Carter," the older one began, leaning across the table. "Your father was shot last night. Witnesses claim Jason Miller was holding the gun. But your sister, Lily, says otherwise. She says you pulled the trigger. Care to explain?" My mouth went dry. "That's a lie. I would never hurt my father. I was inside the house when it happened. I heard the gunshot and ran outside like everyone else." He studied me for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then he slid a folder across the table. "Funny. Because one of the guests at the wedding claims they saw you arguing with your father earlier that night. Something about his disapproval of Jason." My stomach twisted. Yes, I argued with my father. But not because of Jason. I argued because I wanted him to stop digging into Jason's past, to stop turning every family dinner into an interrogation. But now that argument was being twisted against me. The younger detective finally spoke. "Emily, we're not saying you meant to shoot him. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe you were angry. Maybe the gun went off by mistake." "No." I slammed my hands on the table, tears spilling down my face. "I didn't shoot him. I swear on my life." The door burst open before they could press further. My mother rushed in, her eyes red from crying, clutching papers in her hands. "Stop this interrogation right now," she cried. "My daughter is innocent." The detectives exchanged a glance, then sighed. "Mrs. Carter, unless you have evidence, we can't just..." But then she slammed the papers onto the table. "Security footage," she said. "From our estate. It shows exactly what happened." My heart raced as they plugged the footage into a laptop. Grainy black and white images flickered on the screen. The lawn. My father walking outside. Jason lurking in the shadows. And then, the flash of the gun. But something didn't add up. The angle was off. The shooter wasn't directly visible. The footage showed Jason holding the weapon, but there was another shadow moving in the background. A smaller figure. Someone closer to my father than Jason was. The video cut off before the truth became clear. The detectives paused, whispering to each other. One of them turned to me. "This doesn't prove your innocence, Miss Carter. But it raises questions." I leaned forward, desperation breaking through my fear. "That shadow, did you see it? Someone else was there. Someone else pulled the trigger." The older detective nodded slowly. "Which means either Jason didn't act alone, or someone is framing both of you." The room spun. My heart raced. Because deep down, I knew exactly who that shadow could be. Lily. My mind screamed the truth I didn't want to face. Lily bailed Jason out. Lily defended him. Lily turned the world against me. And maybe, just maybe, Lily was the one who pulled the trigger. But before I could say anything, the younger detective leaned in. "Emily, your father is awake. He's asking for you." I froze. My father was alive. He could finally tell us who shot him. Relief washed over me like rain on dry soil. Minutes later, I rushed into the hospital room. My father lay pale and weak, tubes running from his body, but his eyes fluttered open when he saw me. "Dad," I whispered, gripping his hand. "It's me, Emily. You don't have to be afraid. Just tell the police what happened. Tell them who shot you." His lips trembled. He tried to speak, but his voice was weak. I leaned closer, pressing my ear near his mouth. And then, in a hoarse whisper, he said the words that shattered my world. "It was you." My knees buckled. The room spun. I pulled away, staring at him in disbelief. "What?" "No, Dad, it wasn't me. You know it wasn't me." But he shut his eyes, turning his head away. The monitor beeped steadily, mocking the silence that followed. The police officer standing in the corner stepped forward, scribbling in his notebook. "We'll take a statement as official testimony." "No," I cried, shaking my father's hand. "Please, Dad, tell them the truth. It wasn't me, but He wouldn't look at me. He wouldn't speak another word. And in that moment I realized my own father had just condemned me. The day after my father's whispered accusation, the police returned to the hospital. I stood in the hallway, trembling, as the detectives walked out of his room with solemn faces. "It's official," one of them said. "Richard Carter identified you as the shooter. Emily Carter, you are under arrest for attempted murder." My mother screamed, grabbing onto me, refusing to let go.
"No.
"You can't do this. She's innocent." "He's confused. He's under medication." But it didn't matter. They put the cold steel cuffs around my wrists and led me out of the hospital like a criminal. Cameras flashed. Reporters shoved microphones in my face. Strangers yelled words that sliced through me like knives. Murderer? Jealous witch. She tried to kill her own father. By the time I reached the county jail, the humiliation was complete. I was booked, fingerprinted, thrown into a cell that smelled of sweat and despair. That night, I lay on the thin mattress, staring at the cracked ceiling, replaying everything in my head. Jason, Lily, my father, the shadow in the footage. Nothing made sense. Nothing but one thought that burned like fire in my chest. Someone is framing me. But who? The next morning, I was taken to court for my arraignment. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Karen, tried to reassure me. "We'll fight this, Emily. The evidence is circumstantial, and that footage leaves room for doubt." But as we entered the courtroom, my breath caught in my throat. Sitting in the front row, holding hands like newlyweds, were Jason and Lily. Jason smirked when he saw me. Lily avoided my gaze, her face pale but determined. It was like watching my heart being stabbed all over again. The judge entered, the trial began, and the prosecution wasted no time. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," the prosecutor said, pacing across the courtroom, "this case is not about romance. It is about jealousy." Emily Carter was humiliated at the altar when her fiancé chose her sister over her. And in a fit of rage, she shot her father, blaming Jason Miller to cover her crime. The words stung like acid. I wanted to scream, to tell them it wasn't true. But my lawyer grabbed my hand under the table, squeezing it, warning me to stay quiet. Then they called their star witness, Lily. She walked to the stand, her heels clicking against the marble floor, her head held high. And when she sat down, she looked directly at me. "Lily," the prosecutor began, "did you see your sister the night your father was shot?" Lily's eyes glistened with fake tears.
"Yes."
"I saw Emily arguing with her father. She was angry, yelling at him. Minutes later, I heard the gunshot. And when I ran outside, her voice cracked. I saw her holding the gun." Gasps filled the courtroom. My heart shattered. "Liar!" I screamed, standing up. "You know that's not true. You're doing this for Jason." "Order!" the judge thundered, banging the gavel. "One more outburst, and you'll be held in contempt." I sank back into my chair, my whole body shaking. Lily avoided my gaze now, her eyes fixed on the floor. The rest of the trial blurred together. Witnesses twisting stories. Reporters scribbling in their notepads. Jason sitting smugly, as if he had already won. By the end of the day, I felt like the walls of the courtroom were closing in. But then everything changed. As the session ended, a man rushed into the courtroom, his clothes disheveled, his face pale with panic. He waved a folder in his hand, shouting at the judge, "Your Honor, you need to see this. It's urgent." The bailiffs tried to hold him back, but the judge ordered him forward. The man handed the folder over, breathing hard. Inside was a USB drive. When the footage played on the courtroom screen, the entire room fell silent. It was the security camera again, but this time, the missing portion had been recovered. The angle was clear. The shadows were visible. And in the frame, just seconds before the gun went off, stood a figure holding the weapon. It wasn't me. It wasn't Jason. It was Lily. The courtroom erupted in chaos. Reporters screamed. My mother covered her mouth in horror. My lawyer jumped to her feet, shouting, "Your Honor, this changes everything." But before the judge could even respond, Lily stood up from the witness stand, her face pale as death. She turned to Jason, and then bolted for the exit. "Stop her," the judge yelled. But it was too late. Lily had fled the courtroom. And in that moment, the truth became undeniable. My own sister had just exposed herself as the real shooter. The courtroom descended into chaos. Bailiffs sprinted toward the doors, reporters shouted over each other, and the judge's gavel slammed again and again to restore order. But nothing could stop the storm Lily had unleashed. I sat frozen, my mind racing. My sister, the same sister I once braided hair for, the same sister I protected growing up, was the one who pulled the trigger. And yet, here I was, sitting in the defendant's chair, shackled by lies. My lawyer leaned close. "Emily, this is good. This is the break we needed. With this footage, the case against you collapses." But my relief was cut short when Jason stood up. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't shocked. He was smiling. The judge bellowed, "Court is adjourned until further notice." The crowd spilled out into the hallway, the building buzzing like a hive of hornets. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashing, voices echoing. Did Lily Carter frame her sister? Was Jason Miller involved in the plot? Is the Carter family hiding more secrets? Police cars screeched away from the courthouse, chasing after Lily's getaway. And then Jason walked past me, his voice low enough only I could hear. "You think this changes anything?" he murmured. "Lily may have pulled the trigger, but this game isn't over. Not until I say it is."
His words chilled me.
Because in that moment, I realized Jason hadn't lost. Not yet. He was playing a bigger game, and Lily was just another pawn. Hours later, back at the estate, the house felt like a grave. My mother sat on the couch, her hands shaking as she clutched a rosary. My father lay in the hospital, clinging to life. And me? I was free for now. But the whispers of the world still painted me guilty. Then a knock came at the door. 2 detectives entered, grim-faced. "Emily, we've located your sister." My heart leapt. "Where is she?" The older detective hesitated. "She's barricaded inside a motel on the east side. Jason is with her." I froze. "Jason? He's supposed to be under custody." "He posted bail again," the detective muttered. "And now we've got a standoff. They're armed. They're refusing to come out." My mother gasped, covering her mouth. No, not Lily. I wanted to run, to scream, to demand answers. But then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One new message. It was a video. With shaking hands, I hit play. The screen flickered to life. Lily's face appeared, her mascara smeared, her eyes wild with fear. Behind her, Jason loomed, one arm around her neck, the other holding a gun. "Emily," Lily sobbed. "I didn't mean to. I only wanted him to choose me. I never wanted Dad to get hurt." Jason leaned into the frame, his eyes cold and unblinking. "Your sister's a liar, Emily. She did exactly what I told her to do. And now she'll pay the price, unless you do exactly as I say." He pressed the gun harder against her head. Lily whimpered. "Bring yourself to the motel," Jason said. "Alone. No police. No lawyers. Just you. Or your sister dies tonight." The video ended. My phone slipped from my hands, crashing to the floor. My mother screamed. The detectives cursed under their breath. I stood there, my whole body trembling, torn between rage and fear. For years, I had loved Jason. Then I hated him. And now, I was staring into the eyes of a man who had become a monster. And there was only one truth left. If I didn't face him tonight, Lily would die. The night air was heavy, almost choking me as I drove toward the East Side Motel. Every mile felt like a drumbeat of fate, pounding louder and louder in my chest. Police cars trailed in the shadows, but I knew if they intervened too soon, Lily's blood would stain the carpet before I even got inside. When I arrived, the flashing red and blue lights reflected off the rusted sign of the motel. Officers had the building surrounded, guns drawn, radios crackling. But Jason's warning burned in my mind, alone. No police. Or she dies. I stepped out of the car, my hands raised. "I'm going in," I shouted. The lead officer grabbed my arm. "Ma'am, it's a death trap. He's unstable. Let us handle this." I shook him off. This is my fight. It started with me, and it's going to end with me. The motel door creaked as I pushed it open. The smell of cheap beer and cigarette smoke hit me. The room was dim, lit only by a flickering lamp. And there they were. Lily, bound to a chair, mascara streaking her pale face, tears glistening under the weak light. And Jason, standing behind her, his gun pressed to her temple. The moment his eyes locked on me, he grinned like a wolf. Well, well, my runaway bride finally came home. My heart clenched, but I forced my voice to stay steady. Jason let her go. "You don't need to do this." "Don't I?" he sneered. "Everything I ever wanted was within reach. Your family's empire, the power, the influence. But you," he jabbed the gun against Lily's head. "You ruined it. First with your arrogance, then with your betrayal. And now you want me to just walk away." "You slept with her," I snapped, pointing at Lily. "You humiliated me at the altar. And still, you're blaming me?" Jason's laughter was dark, bitter. "Don't you get it, Emily? It was never about love. You were a ticket. Lily was an accident. And your father's death? Just collateral damage." Lily sobbed. "Emily, I'm sorry. I thought he loved me. I didn't know it would go this far." My hands curled into fists. Rage boiled inside me, but beneath it was a cold clarity. Jason had taken everything from me. My peace.
My trust.
My family. And now it was my turn. I stepped closer. Jason's eyes narrowed. "Stop right there or she dies." But I didn't stop. I met his gaze, my voice low and razor sharp. "You won't pull that trigger. Because deep down you still think you can win. But you've already lost, Jason. The moment you stepped into this room with a camera rolling." His smirk faltered. "What?" I tilted my head toward the corner. A blinking red light. The police had rigged the room before I walked in. Every word he had just confessed, his motives, his cruelty, his part in my father's death, was caught on tape. Jason's face twisted in rage. He shoved Lily aside and lunged at me, the gun raising. Time slowed. I saw the flash of metal, heard the deafening crack. And then Jason staggered backward, eyes wide, clutching his chest. A sniper's bullet had cut through the glass, finding its mark. He collapsed to the floor, his last breath a bitter whisper. "You ruined everything." Silence fell. The gun clattered beside him. Lily sobbed uncontrollably, collapsing into my arms as officers stormed the room. The nightmare was over. Or so I thought. Because just as they dragged Jason's lifeless body away, Lily pulled back from me, her face streaked with tears but her voice trembling with something else. "Emily," she whispered, "you don't understand. Jason wasn't working alone. Someone else wanted Dad dead. Someone closer than you think." Her words sent ice through my veins.
"Who?"
I demanded. But Lily's eyes darted toward the doorway, where my mother stood, watching us, her expression unreadable. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure if I could trust my own blood.